And we do have cards that will be handed out, and the ideas that you have, put them in there. Because there is something that we want from the NAACP. We want from individuals that are in leadership. And we also want something coming back to us. And the NAACP does have a newsletter. But they're looking to address what our concerns are. And then to look in on those concerns realistically. Because some things, we may present an idea, but it really can't take place in 30 days. When is it the last time our kid came to us and asked us to do something and we could, oh, I can just do it just like that? Or our employer. No, we look at it and say, well, you know, this takes some time. So we're just saying, even when we look in on whether it's the President of the United States, he can't turn things around. He walked into a bad deal. And if you're going to be president here of the NAACP, walked into a bad deal because there's just a lot of things that continue to be out of place, especially as it relates to our children. And there's something I want to say to the adults, because I think it's very important, because oftentimes we do talk about our children, and we do say that our children are out of control. We have to remember it begins with us, the adults. We are the ones that put things, I want to say adults are out of control, and that's why, our kids. So we really want to look in on this thing. I see that young man with a smile, because, our young people can look in on adults and know when adults ain't got their stuff going right. We're all human here. We got to work this thing. But we do have something, because we are the adults, that we have to put in place. Because I always say, if I hear one more time that our children are our future, I'm probably going to get sick to my stomach. Because we know this thing, we got to deal with this thing. We're responsible for doing something with it. Now, and for those of you that saw that Barack Obama cover, we got you covered. So if you want one of these, you'll be able to get one later on this day. But we're going to start with our program. I want to give thanks to our wonderful president of this university, this college here. We call her, she's our sister president, because she opened the doors 6 years ago to the community and said, look, I want the community to know that we are a part of community. And so we've had a good relationship all throughout. And she says anything that can take place here at the university is the kind of relationship we want. But it takes two of us coming together. So we want to thank our Madam President here, Dr. Dorsey Kendrick. And if you heard the commercial, as she says, come on down to our place. This is our place. It's one of the places that are educating our children, and a lot of folks outside in a lot of suburban areas, they look at Gateway as well and saying, we're going to get our kids started there. So this is a home for our young people wherever they are. So once again, let's give recognition to Gateway. And our very next speaker is going to be Brother Wiley Mullins. And I know we have Brother Mullins in the house, and he is going to speak to us about taking charge of our destiny. And we want to take charge of our destiny through our appetite. My God, what a way to put it. But we are controlled by our appetites, am I right? And many different, yes. So, Brother Wiley Mullins.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Come on, you can do better. Good morning.
I looked over, the phone rang, and it was a strange number from Michigan, and the voice was a strange voice on the other side. It was a man, a doctor, and he was calling about my brother, and he said we've had to put Michael on life support. And Michael is a 58-year-old college professor, diabetic that did not take care of himself. Morehouse graduate, Brown University, extremely bright, but he enjoyed too many Little Debbies and too many McDonald's French fries, and too many sweet teas, and Cokes, and ice cream, and sweet potato pies, not just Thanksgiving, but all too often. And I travel back and forth to Detroit so many times to see him and those kinds of things. As soon as I leave here, I'm on my way to the airport to go back out once again. But this health thing is extremely real, and we have not taken it seriously at all. We just haven't. Detroit is the diabetic capital of the states. It's got a 77% African American population. And, what's so interesting about Birmingham is when you really think about what took place there. I mean, 16th Street Baptist Church, where 3 little girls were killed. Dr. King marching through the street. And, Michael was in the hospital, and I went over to his house. And as I started to look in cupboards, I saw, all kinds of things. Hershey's chocolates and Hershey's Kisses. I saw 3 or 4 little boxes of Little Debbie. And I thought, my gosh, this little girl has done more of a job on any black man than any little girl that I could ever imagine. Doing a project with A&P Supermarkets, and we were in a new store opening, and there was a black man in a wheelchair, and one leg was amputated, and he had 2 boxes of Little Debbie cakes in his hands. And I just don't get it. I really don't get it. So I want to talk to you this morning really about the history, our history, black people's history in food. African Americans were not the first enslaved people in this country. Native Americans were. But what was interesting about Native Americans compared to African Americans, the Native Americans were not able to do the work in the fields. They couldn't do it. The black people could. And people might say, well, how is that? What's that all about? First of all, African Americans, the slaves, only had 1 meal a day. And the meal came at the end of a long day's work. There wasn't this thing at 10:15 is break time, or 12 o'clock is lunchtime. They didn't have that. They would come back to where they lived every night, a vegetarian, fruits, vegetables, grains, and nuts. And it's so amazing that that little bit of food enabled them to be the powerhouses that they were to do that kind of work. So what is that saying to us? That is saying that do we really need 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on the sesame seed bun?
Nope.
Do we really need a visit to the Colonel 2, 3, 4 times a week? Is Coke really it? Do we have to have dessert at every meal? Is bread a requirement? That is us, that is something that we need? When I'm working on a book called The Unopened Gift, and it talks about the gift that our slave ancestors left to us. And I think, that typical size slave woman was about what we would consider today to be about size 4. A typical size slave man weighed about 150, 160 pounds. Not too many of us that fall into that. Do you know that the life expectancy of an African American woman in 2009 is less than the life expectancy of a black woman in 1850 in the United States? And this is with all of our technology, all of our degrees, all of our education, all of our cars, all of our jewelry, all of the things that we enjoy. A decent bed, central air, all of that. After the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in the 1860s, 85% of the slave population stayed within 12 to 15 miles of where they were, where they were enslaved. And they were sharecroppers. So they continued basically the same lifestyle, working hard, fruits, vegetables, grains, and nuts. All right. It wasn't until the early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution in this country, when people started leaving and coming back and talking about what they had in Chicago and Detroit and New York and Boston. And so people started venturing off. Our lifestyles changed. We got back into this situation where, for the first time, we were going into these smaller stores and we were buying meat. And it was the cheaper cuts of meat. Let's talk about that, because every food, generation of people, many of us were born in the 50s. Our generation, when that came out, it was so fruity and such a good experience. And we enjoyed ourselves. And then came the drive-ups. McDonald's, Hardee's, Burger King, KFC, and that became our staple. So our next generation, we started having that, and we got into our biggie sizes. The big French fries and big Cokes and big burgers. And that just became the way we ate. We didn't stop there though. We got into the 90s and the new millennium, and we got into the buffet era.
Oh, yes.
I was at church the other day. A friend of mine said, we're going to Hometown Buffet after church. And I passed by there. That was about 12:15. And then I passed by there at 3 o'clock, going to the Barnes & Noble, and guess what? Their car was still at Hometown Buffet. We've all done that, haven't we? All the desserts and the fried chicken and everything and the mac and cheese. When is it going to stop? That's where we are right now. And no one's talking about the deaths that people are suffering from. Okay, I want to show of hands. How many people know people who are diabetic?
Oh, yeah.
High blood pressure. Obese. How many people know folks that have died in the civil rights movement? Right. Look at the numbers. Health is our civil right too. And we haven't really talked much about it, have we? And when we talk about our collard greens and our sweet potatoes, we think we're eating healthy, but sometimes when we put a piece of striga lean meat, we're putting about 200 grams of fat in one pot that's going in your stomachs. Our green beans, we're taking something that God created perfectly, and we have completely messed it up. There were three interesting women, black women that came out of Birmingham that most of you know. One was Condoleezza Rice. The other was Angela Davis. And the other was Alma Powell, Colin Powell's wife. All pretty much in the same era. Maybe Alma might be a few years older, maybe not. And they all impacted history. Right now, we're looking at a state like the state of Mississippi, 68% of the adults over the age of 18 are either obese or overweight. Alabama is about 65. In Connecticut, it's about 55. And Connecticut is the 49th best state. So it's not that much difference between the worst state, Mississippi, and Connecticut and Colorado, which are considered two of the better states. But when we look at those numbers of African Americans in Mississippi, it's over 75% of the adults are either obese or overweight, over the age of 18. And here in Connecticut, it's about 60.
Wow.
We just don't need to be doing this to ourselves. You know, I never have heard a sermon preached about this, about really taking care of yourself. You know, I really haven't. And I wonder why. Because just when people are at a point in time that they put in 30 or 35 years on the job, they're not well enough to be there for their grandchildren or to be there for their community.
Yes.
My brother Michael's not even 60 years old. Not even. And look at him. I don't know if he'll ever draw a day of retirement. I lost a father at 64. I lost a grandfather at 63. This is real for us. It really is real. So many of our kids don't have dads to start with. And growing up without a mom is not a good thing either. I was so excited when I saw Miss Monroe lead us in Lift Every Voice and Sing. And we should celebrate that. But you know what? We can talk about education, we can talk about all those other issues, but health has to be right at the table too. You know, we can talk about that because that's something we can control. Anyway, this afternoon, in just a few minutes, we're going to show you a quick way of getting optimal nutrition. When we were children, they used to tell us the old standard food pyramid where you got to have so much meat, so much cheese, so much dairy, so many vegetables, so many fruits. Well, all of that got thrown out 3 years ago. The revised pyramid is saying that an adult has and should have 9 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Most of us get about 4. And do you know what our number one vegetable in this country is?
Corn. Potatoes.
Hmm?
Potatoes?
Yeah, the number one vegetable in this country, 22% of vegetables that are consumed are French fries.
Which produces sugar.
Yeah, French fries. And when you look at the universe of thousands of different fruits and vegetables, we are truly missing out. So this afternoon, we're going to have some salads for you to try. That you can, if you had an entree salad, a salad on a plate, basically a dinner plate, you could get your 8 to 10 servings of vegetables just like that every day. And you should have colors. And let me tell you just how important colors are. Do you know the number one prostate cancer has gotten to become such a big deal for men, very big deal for African American men because we just don't go get tested.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know the largest percentage of the Italian American men, okay, this is interesting, Italian American men has the lowest incidence of prostate cancer of any group of men in this country.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because they consume a lot of lycopene. Lycopene is found in red fruits and vegetables like strawberries, watermelons, tomatoes. And they eat a lot of pasta with tomato sauce. So you are what you eat. And there's a community in South Africa that virtually has no trace of, they haven't had any dementia, or Alzheimer's, or anything like that. And they eat a lot of purple grapes. The indole in grapes, loaded with so much nutrition, is linked with, it's called brain food. In fact, and I'm going to say this in closing. Do you know the most antioxidant-rich vegetable that we can eat? What do you think it is?
Kale.
Think the darker the color, the more the nutrition.
Beets.
Black beans.
Like beans.
Black bean.
Black beans is a power food. Black bean is the most nutritious vegetable you can eat. It's black, dark, all that antioxidant power. Blueberries are the most nutritious fruit you can eat, dark. Just to give you this in closing, most of us, when we make a salad, the old-fashioned salad is iceberg lettuce, tomato, and Miracle Whip. Remember those? Anyway, it would take you about 33 cups of iceberg lettuce to get the nutrition in 1 cup of baby spinach. The darker the green, the darker the color, the more the nutrition. So those are just some things I wanted to share with you today. We've got such a great legacy for our people, from our slave ancestors, on how they endured. And it's because of what they ate. And they didn't stuff themselves. They didn't eat 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. They had a fasted lifestyle. And they made it. They were successful. Thank you.